Hello, what a week it's been, and welcome to another Square Off program. Let's meet this week's panel.
I'm Chris Kennedy.
Nicolee Ambrose.
I'm Jovani Patterson.
And I'm Barry Gogel.
And I'm Richard Sher. We begin with the Jewish people in Maryland and around the world who are shaken by the attack at Bondi Beach, which is a popular suburb of Sydney, Australia, where Jewish men, women, and children were celebrating the first night of the Jewish holiday of Hanukkah, the Festival of Lights. All of a sudden, two suspects, a father and his son, opened fire, killing at least 16 people, ranging in age from 10 to 87, and wounding more than 40 others. What's your reaction to this, Barry, and what do you have to say?
Well, you can't say anything other than sadness. Hanukkah is about bringing light to the world. I do take a ray of hope out of one of the most darkest tragedies. There was a man who risked his life to stop the first shooter, and he was a Muslim refugee. And I, for one, cannot give enough thanks to this individual who saved countless Jewish lives, and showing the world that we are better than the pigeonholes that the world puts us into. I understand that individual has been threatened by his own people. And the one thing I would like to say to the people all around the world of any religion is, if your religion teaches you to hate, maybe you should question your religion.
Jovani, come on in.
Yeah, man. So first off, my heart goes out to the, families, the victims, and shout out to the, the brave man that went to, rescue and stop the attack from being worse. But we have to be clear, like, this is a larger attack on the West, and sadly, oftentimes our Jewish brothers and sisters are at the receiving end of these attacks. I remember at the time I spent in Israel. I spent 2.5 months there, and just constantly being on alert for things that can happen, and still living peacefully, amongst themselves. But ultimately, we're seeing an attack on the West, things built on Judeo-Christian values, and it's a move to intimidate the West and try to destroy it. I just hope we are seeing that there is real evil out there, and Rabbi Druck is like, the only answer to darkness is more light in this time.
Chris.
Yeah, this ongoing wave of anti-Semitic shootings should make everyone appalled and worried for the safety of the Jewish community. I went and put together a list of where the shootings have been happening in recent years, and it's pretty alarming. Australia, Manchester, England, Washington, D.C., Colorado, Jerusalem, Texas, New Jersey, New York, California, and of course, Pittsburgh. The most recent stats about incidents against the Jewish community between 2022 and 2023. In 2022, there were 3,700 incidents against the Jewish community in the United States. The following year, there were 8,900. That's a rise of 140%. And then the scariest stat of all that is that when you take all incidents in the United States, most recently based on religion, all the religions practiced in the U.S., 70% of those religious-based attacks were launched at the Jewish community.
Well, we have an awful lot. Excellent. Nicolee, did you speak?
I have to say I've done a lot of work on global religious persecution. And at the same time, I agree with Jovani. This is an attack on the West. And we have to really explore why anti-Semitism has increased so much, especially in the past 10 years, and the sources of funding for that. Because it's not just in Australia, as we know, we see it across America in college campuses. It's not just shootings, it's members of Congress chanting from the river to the sea. And the fact that any of this anti-Semitism could become mainstream is completely disturbing, and we need to address it, not just in Australia, but here in America.
Can I just add, Richard?
Okay, make it brief because we've got a time.
Real quick. I wish it were just attack on the left. I wish I could say, or attack on the West. You know, the history has shown us that sadly, there are many groups all over the world who take it upon themselves to hate and kill Jews, not just left, not just right. We seem to be the target of everybody, and it's sad. It's time to stop. It's being done in the name of religion, and and everybody needs to question. Even the Jewish people need to question
Right.
if their religion is causing them to hate. They must question their religion.
Thank you, Barry. Nicolee, I just wanted to say to you that when you move back in your chair, you fade out, the light changes. So stay up. See, it's changed right now. Move up a little closer to your camera.
I will
Whoop.
change my position.
That's a good idea. We'll be back. Here's Howard Mallison, the voice of Square Off, and we'll continue in just a moment.
Thank you, Richard. Bear with me for 1 second. I want to take this time to welcome back Pappas restaurants and sports bars to Square Off. For fine dining, special occasions, or just watching sports in your at their sports bars with all the televisions everywhere, you should make Pappas your first choice. Enjoy an award-winning Pappas crab cake, or as Richard calls it, the Fab Cake, which is Oprah's favorite, or one of the many delicious choices on the Pappas menu. Plus, Pappas ships their crab cakes all over the country with 4 locations in Parkville, Cockneysville, Glen Burnie, and Bel Air. See you at Pappas. If you're experiencing any kind of foot pain that requires medical attention, I recommend Dr. Kelly Gogel, a well-respected board-certified podiatrist and heel specialist. No one is immune from foot problems. Also, if your concern is the appearance of your feet, Dr. Gogel has a long record of success using laser treatments to correct your issue. Plus, they're safe, they're painless, and go right to the root of the problem. You can believe me because I'm a cured patient, and so is Richard.
Oh, yes.
So don't suffer from the agony of defeat. Start winning with a call to Dr. Gogel at 410-753-4422 to set up an appointment. Once again, that's 410-753-4422. Or if you or a family member has experienced personal injury, medical malpractice, or nursing home neglect, it's time to call the law firm of Barry Glazer. He has the legal team and resources to go after the big insurance companies to get you every penny he can. With an in-house medical doctor and nurse, his attorneys work on the toughest and most complex medical malpractice cases. Barry Glazer is your best advocate for the injured, disabled, and medically abused. So give Barry Glazer a call at 410-547-8568 and let him know you heard about him on Square Off. And back to you, Rich.
All right. Kelly Gogel has one of our friends now who had to see her rather, with a foot problem. So there we go. Thanks for everybody who sponsors our show. 32-year-old Nick Reiner will be arraigned January 7th, charged with the stabbing deaths of his father, 78-year-old Rob Reiner, and his 68-year-old mother, Michelle Reiner. He faces life without parole or the death penalty. Reiner had struggled with drug addiction, was in rehab 18 times before he turned 22. How about reaction from you, Nicolee?
So obviously, mental illness and addiction has gotten completely out of control in this country, and it seems like we haven't done much to address it since the days of Ronald Reagan. But I think I actually have some breaking news for you on this subject. According to, there's been a lot of talk of Rob Reiner's kind of vitriol in recent years. He seemed to live on social media. Sounds like it might not have been the most pleasant house to live in. Apparently his family agreed that they didn't like his rants because they have deleted all but 7 of his ex posts. Everything is gone. The whole history of his past 10 years, instead of producing movies, his social media rantings are gone. So it's interesting to see that seems to have been a family challenge of anger across the board.
Well, apparently Nick and his parents had gotten into a very heated argument during a holiday party at comedian Conan O'Brien's home. That was last Saturday night, and their bodies discovered in their Brentwood home on Sunday. Who was wanting to talk? Speak.
So,
Richard,
go ahead, Chris.
go ahead, Gary.
No, you.
Yeah. So it's a terrible tragedy whenever anyone is murdered. And Rob Reiner's career was remarkable. I remember seeing him for the first time on All in the Family. But I'd be remiss if I didn't also add that the president's criticisms of him just hours after his death were unacceptable and distasteful. And let me immediately add that it was equally unacceptable and distasteful for anyone to launch criticisms at Charlie Kirk just hours after his death. I think GOP Louisiana Senator Kennedy summed it up very well when he's about the president's comments when he said, "A wise man once said nothing. Why? Because he's a wise man." I think President Trump should have said nothing.
And let me add, Nicolee, do you sit here today knowing what their family's reasons for you to throw that out could be just as likely as there's been as much hate on those posts that they wanted to just take down and not avoid in this time of mourning as any reason you ascribe to it. None of us know. None of us were in that household. And to jump off of what Chris just said, to me, the two greatest sins a politician can display, and many do, are hypocrisy and egotism. And Trump's words reek of both. As Chris pointed out, to say what he said about Reiner after what he did for Charlie Kirk goes beyond the heights of hypocrisy. And then to make it about himself, make it about some sort of Trump derangement syndrome is not just egotistical, it's vile. And I don't know how anyone can defend Trump in this capacity. And many have not, thankfully.
Jovani,
All right, so
Nicolee respond.
all right, so first off, what we're seeing here are again issues of the heart, right? And one thing I don't think we've talked about this when it comes to Mr. Nick Reiner, is that this is a man that had all resources available. I mean, we have activists out here fighting to end homelessness or end addiction, and this is a family that was pretty well off, and yet this young man was battling with homelessness, right? How are you the son of Rob Reiner and you're homeless, right? That this, it's almost like money doesn't solve the problem.
Right.
And these are things again that are issues of the heart. Also, we're living in a time where it seems like emotional self-control is seen as optional and weakness is rewarded, right? I mean, it's so backwards, nowadays. Now, on the issue of Trump, right? Trump has shown you who he is since before he became president. So for him to have, for the public outrage of, the comments that he made, I'm still not clear on why people are mad about what he said, because he's been the same person since before he's run for president. But it also again shows the level of control that someone else's words have on the individual. And I think we really need to cut that out, because I think Trump derangement syndrome is real, whether you call it anger or resentment. They labeled it as Trump derangement syndrome as the latest iteration of that, but resentment and anger is real. And we know this medical studies that will show anger, resentment will cause people to behave erratically.
Nicolee, you're up.
So I think Jovani made so many great points there. I have to say, in the case of immediate death, I think it's probably best to say in that aftermath, don't say anything nice if you can't say anything at all. That would always be my advice to anyone. But you also have to just look at how could someone like Rob Reiner, who's clearly extremely talented. I mean, he wrote and produced and directed some of my favorite movies. And he had such a great sense of humor, in the 80s and 90s. The diversity of his body of work was just remarkable, and he was very prolific. How you could go from that to sitting on social media and ranting all day long for 10 years, it's just sad. What a waste of talent. And a lesson to everyone to not let anger consume them like that. And then at the same time, I have to say, I saw a really beautiful interview of Nick Reiner and his dad. And he sat there and said, I'm so lucky because unlike other people who struggle with addiction, I have family who supports me. And I'm just so lucky I have resources. And obviously some of those situations changed quite a bit. And then everything just came undone this past weekend. But it's just such a tragedy. It's a tragedy of waste of life. It's a tragedy of a loss of talent. It's a tragedy of consumption of anger. It's just a lesson of everything not to do with your time and talent.
Barry, go wrap this up.
Oh, I just, Jovani, don't confuse anger with surprise. No one's surprised at what Trump said. We know who he is. We know he will say and do be hypocritical and vile. It just doesn't make it any less right just because we know he's going to do it. So don't confuse surprise with anger or
Kentucky Republican Representative Thomas Massey made this comment. Regardless of how you felt about Rob Reiner, this, referring to Trump's comment, is inappropriate and disrespectful discourse about a man who was just brutally murdered. Okay? That's that topic. We have several more to get to. You're watching Square Off, and here again is Howard Mallison.
Thank you, Richard. 1 second. There we go. With so many cars on the road and distracted drivers everywhere, auto accidents are going to happen. And if you've experienced an accident, the insurance companies can't tell you where to take your car. That's why more and more drivers are trusting their auto repairs and maintenance to leading edge auto body and mechanical repair. They work on all makes and models and offer free pickup and delivery anywhere in the Baltimore area. So give them a call at 410-443-6433 or visit them at 5807 Falls Road in the heart of Mount Washington. They make your car look and run like new again. For breakfast, lunch, and dinner, your choice for a great meal starts at the Double T Diner. And all the menu choices are served the entire day. The Double T Diner has locations all over town: Route 40 West, Perry Hall, White Marsh, Bel Air, Laurel, Annapolis, Pasadena, and the EC Diner in Ellicott City. You've never seen a menu with so many selections. It's why the Double T Diner wins so many reader polls. Plus, Monday nights are By the Dock is lobster night at By the Dock's part of the Double T family. I'm getting so excited about those lobsters. Let them know you heard about them on Square Off. Now back to you, Rich.
All right, thank you so much, Howard. Let's talk now about President Trump's rapid fire 18-minute address to the nation Wednesday night, saying that inflation was cool and the country was hot, adding job numbers are up and crime is down. Nicolee, you talk first. What did you think of the president?
So I actually thought it was a really interesting move to do an address before Christmas, right? Because the conventional wisdom is, everyone's distracted by the holidays, maybe kick off the new year with such a thing. But I think it was really smart to try to make his case before families gather for the holidays and invariably talk politics. But he also said one of my favorite lines I've heard in a speech in a long time, which I thought was just really defined the moment.
What was that?
Was the end of the speech. He closed it with, when the world looks at us next year, and he was referring to, heading into our 250 celebrations. When the world looks at us next year, may the world see a nation that is loyal to its citizens. And I just thought that was so key because really that was it really sums up the 24 elections so well, that so many people felt their country was not fighting for them, was giving more rights to illegal aliens than it was to its own U.S. citizens. Membership's supposed to have its benefits, and it seemed like U.S. citizens were last in line, not only to our own country, but to the rest of the world. So I thought he did a great job making that economic case and just the case for why people in every single swing state and most of the states across the union voted for him.
All right. Chris Kennedy, I know you have something to say to Nicolee and to our audience.
Well, not just to everyone. I recall when these presidential TV network addresses to the nation were meant for momentous occasions, like Nixon resigning, like the Challenger disaster, like 9/11, and like bin Laden being killed. But this past week, we saw it used for rank, naked, political diversionary purpose. Um, the president is worried and he's scared. And I'm not so concerned about the way he presented the speech. It was an hour speech jammed into 18 minutes, and that's pretty hard to do, whoever you are. Um, he is trying to solve the problem of affordability, and he did inherit a difficult economy, but so did Obama, who inherited the second worst economy in American history. But Obama didn't spend a year whining about it. The president needs to look in his front window of his car, not the rear view window. And he needs to find a solution for the affordability problem, which is the thing that Americans have always cared most about. And if he doesn't, he's going to suffer what every incumbent does, which is the loss of seats in the House and the Senate. I will give him credit for one statistic, which came out actually after the speech. Inflation is slowing down. It slowed down to 2.7%, and that's an achievement that we saw from November. But there are so many other affordable problems. There are families in America right now, millions, where parents are foregoing dinner so that they have food to feed their children. That is scary stuff. And
Rapid.
I don't know if he's aware of it, but if he isn't, he should be, and he should find a solution to it and devote all his time to that, not looking at small models of buildings that he's putting around DC and existing buildings that he's putting his name on.
All right, Jovani, I see there's a twinkle in your eye. What do you have to say? And then Barry Gogel.
Look, man, Trump has been a master marketer for years and years and years and years. And one thing about politics is what I've learned running for office and being around Nicolee and the political system. Politics is always about what have you done for me lately? And what Trump is doing is being a master of is keeping front of mind the things that he's doing, the issues that were present when he took office, because when it comes time to vote again, those are the things that need to be remembered. How often do we get to election time and forgot that bad politician that we dealt with for 4 years, led us into the crap hole, and then vote for him again because the latest thing he just said sounded good. So what Trump is doing is brilliantly a brilliant political move. But also there is some other things. You said I think Chris, you said he was scared. Now there are some threats coming in America, and right now it is the serious threat of communism, because you had Mamdani meet with him in the Oval Office. And one of the issues that they talked about was affordability. You notice in that meeting with Mamdani Trump, they talked about affordability. Now, the affordability, the communists have been using, or Democratic Socialists of America, or whatever label you want to play on them, have been using this as another aim to enforce a communist agenda. Government needs to be paying more. We need to have bigger government control of groceries, renting, and housing. And yes, that is a real threat to America right now, because we need American independence. We need more people working. We need
Wrap it
less
up.
people dependent on the government.
Go ahead, Barry. Make it brief.
There's so much there. I'm not sure where to begin. I'll start with Trump. Could he have been angrier? I actually didn't really watch this at when it aired. I only watched it because I knew we were going to talk about it, because I was shocked at how angry he came across. And can we really believe you call him a marketer? Yeah, he is. He's a marketer. He's a showman. He's a carnival barker. And can we really believe the words of a man who fires the commissioner of the Bureau of Labor Statistics because he doesn't like those numbers? And how about the numbers he didn't talk about? Over the past 12 months, the nominal federal spending was $7.0 trillion compared to $6.8 trillion over the same period the year before. And he spent more money, even though he fired hundreds of thousands of people and had a government shutdown. And I don't subscribe to that he inherited a mess. Think about the mess that he left and the mess that Biden inherited. And the natural consequences of inflation when you prime the pump to protect the country from COVID. Inflation was down to 3% when he took office, and down to 2.7% this past November. That's not that great of an increase, or decrease, as I should say, improvement. So I don't subscribe to that. Just because he says it was a mess doesn't mean it was a mess. And how many tropes can he pull out? And to say this is about communism, first of all, we live in a mixed market. We have to. There is no market without the government. And we do need a certain amount of government programs, like, for instance, police and fire. Anyway, I see my time is up. Thank you, Your Honor.
Very good. Thank you very much, Barry. Nicolee, did you want to respond briefly to Barry?
Right. So long story short is that Trump has achieved the unbelievable trifecta right now of tariffs, which have brought in more money than anyone possibly imagined, an interest rate cut, and cooling inflation, as Chris Kennedy mentioned, 2.7, 2.75. These are phenomenal numbers for the American people. And if the concern is that Americans need to see even lower grocery bills than their Thanksgiving turkey going down by 33%, you've got some runway for that to play out in 2026.
Did want to say that the board, this is also important for this past week, the board of the Kennedy Center voted to rename the Kennedy Center the Trump Kennedy Center. Members of the Kennedy family are saying that Mr. Trump cannot change the name of the Kennedy Center no matter what. But how do you all feel about that? Chris, I see you raising your hand. Go ahead.
Well, again, since I've got the same name, it was created by an act of Congress.
Are you related?
Back in Ireland, yes. But it was created by an act of Congress. And I read the statute. It can't be changed in any way, particularly in the naming, unless it's, passed by the House and the Senate and signed into law by the president. That's the only way the name can change. So I don't think he cares about that. I think that the board that he installed, the puppet board, doesn't care. I think it'll be a sad thing if he does stick his name up there, but it'll be a wonderful thing in January of 2029 to see that name yanked down.
Go ahead, Nick.
I had a great time at the Kennedy Center Honors last week or so. It was fantastic. And it's exciting to see the revival taking place. And what an amazing show. So, it's exciting to see the energy that the Trump administration is bringing both to the economy, bringing down prices for anyone, and then just restoring the concept of American greatness. And whether it's at the Kennedy Center or for our 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence coming up, that anniversary year in just a few days, it's just exciting. And I'm excited to see people learn about their country and be proud of America again. That's great.
Finally, because we're almost out of time, the President Trump, has mounted, or had mounted, I guess he didn't mount them, photographs of all the presidents of the United States on the pathway to the Oval Office. And he has himself written what's below it. What do you think of that happening? And the ballroom, there'll be a lot of things there that Trump has put in. Final comments?
It's beneath the dignity of the office. It just is. The horrible things that are written, particularly about presidents who are deceased, and the rank lies that are put there are just disgusting, and they are beneath the dignity of the office, period.
And you can't be great if you're not good, Nicolette. And he is not good. He really is not. He is egotistical, shown by all of this. And It's one of the sins that he has. I advise you to read the Declaration of Independence. It is Thomas Jefferson's document about how wrong it is to have a king, and that no man who would make himself king is fit to rule this country. Read it and see how much applies to this individual who's in the White House.
So ironically, I grew up with the Declaration of Independence hanging above the couch I sat on to do all of my homework and everything else, my entire childhood. Ironically, I don't think a king would allow all of these protests and free speech, and I don't think a king would go and solve 7 or 8 world conflicts that the UN nor any other leader in this world could do. Whereas, Obama was great at launching, 20-some thousand drone and missile strikes a year without a declaration of war. So I appreciate that we have a president that is solving global conflicts, that actually cares about making sure Americans can afford life, cares that he'd like to have all of us be able to have little things like water and electricity, which the left has been leaving us behind, certainly in a state like Maryland, where they have absolutely.
Oh, you talk of socialism again.
So I'm just very
water
grateful.
and electricity are social
and
programs.
I don't understand. I really think that people who say things like this need to travel the world a little more and see what it's actually like to not have freedoms in other countries.
Excellent program, ladies and gentlemen, or lady and gentlemen. We all at Square Off wish you and your family a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, a Happy Hanukkah, and thank you, viewers, who have been able to increase our audience significantly at squareoff.net, and we will see you again next time. Happy holidays. See you when we once again square off. Thank you all very much.